What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller, Shane Black, Tarik LaCour from Hook'emHeadlines.com. We are coming at y'all, reporting on the night of Texas advancing to their first Sweet 16 since 2008. I was 13 the last time Texas made it to the Sweet 16. So
I was a junior in high school.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I play. So yeah, I guess.
Shane, were you born?
I was nine. So
okay. I was just waiting for like you. There was just when I said that I was expecting you to just tell us how old you were. So okay, 9.
Yeah, I was 9.
So Tarik, I don't think. Well, would that mean for all of us though? It's been more than half of our lives since the last time the Texas made it to the Sweet 16.
Yep.
I think it might be an even split. No, for you, yeah, for you it'd be right down the middle. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm excited. I've said this on the show before, but covering basketball is one of my favorite things to do. And I've covered a lot of disappointing times in the NCAA tournament for Texas since I started covering them for at least for hoops in 2016, and just being a spectator for a long time. The first thing I have to say is that, I mean, yes, let me get it out of the way. Like, Dylan Disu deserves all the props in the world for this game. He hit a plethora of milestones that I covered in my post-game piece that I just got up on the site. I think it's overlooked that when he hit 20 points tonight, I think that was his second 20-point performance of the season, but he also hit 900 career points. So a cool milestone for him. He also becomes the Texas record holder for field goals in an NCAA tournament game, surpassing Kevin Durant, and he now has the second most points of any Texas player in an NCAA tournament game. Now sandwiched between two separate Kevin Durant performances from 2007. Sorry, yeah, 2007. I mean, I got to give him his props, and I mean, Texas found a way to get it done. Mainly that way was Dylan Disu, but they played really well on defense down the stretch. There was a stretch where Marcus Carr almost killed us at the end. That he missed the front end of a 1-and-1, and then managed to foul a 3-point shooter when Texas was up 7. They got Penn State back within one possession, but he was able to salt away the game. Texas comes away with a 71-66 win, which means I believe isn't it like next Thursday, Friday that the Sweet 16 begins?
Friday. Texas will play on Friday.
Friday, okay. Texas will play the winner of Marquette and Pitt. The 11 seed Pitt and the 3 seed Marquette will not
Xavier.
3 seed Xavier will play. I've been watching too much Marquette. That they will play tomorrow morning. I believe it's 11:10 Central is the tip-off time. But yeah, I'll pass it over to y'all. So I've talked for about 3 minutes now. What are y'all thoughts going out of the game?
First thought is, like you said, just happy that we got to the Sweet 16. It's been so long, 2008. So, yeah, I mean, Texas has been to a national championship in football in less time than that. So, it was good. It's a good win. I'm sure you all saw my tweet where I used my avatar of biting your nails. And the reason I was doing that was because I couldn't understand. We were driving to the hole really well, Disu doing well, and then we just started shooting threes all the time. And I just kept thinking, why? Why are you doing that? Why are we going away from what's working? It was almost the mirror image of Texas versus Oklahoma State in football, where we just stopped running and kept throwing the ball when it obviously wasn't working. So luckily, it didn't cost us tonight, but you're going to get tougher opponents down the road, down the stretch. So we need to clean that up. Defense, thought they played well, keeping Penn State out of the rhythm for the most part on the 3. There were some, I mean, towards down the stretch, we gave them some threes that they missed, that those go the other way, that we lose this game. So we got a few breaks there. But overall, in the day when, Kansas goes down, Purdue has gone down, those 1 seeds, they've gone down. Texas is still strong going to the Sweet 16. So a lot to do. And I'm sure we'll get to this later, but with that win, I think that interim head coach Rodney Terry is now head coach Rodney Terry. I think that's pretty much a done deal now. So turn it over to you, Shane.
Yeah, before I was actually gonna address that, Tarik. So I think I think that was good of you to point out. I covered on the site before the game that it sounds like Rodney Terry, with a trip to the Sweet 16, is going to be one of the top candidates for the job. It sounded like maybe like a top 2 or 3 situation, unless Texas can really get a home run type hire. So I like that you mentioned that. But yeah, Shane, go ahead with your post-game thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, every NCAA tournament win, you're sitting on the edge of your seat the whole game, and even the Colgate game, a 20-point win until those last 4 minutes was, the Raiders were hanging around. But I always feel a sense of relief, and then maybe 15 minutes after the game, I was able to compartmentalize it a little more, and that's when it really kicked in. It's been 15 years since this has happened before, so that relief turned into excitement for this team, excitement for the fan base, for the program, because this is a big deal. I know some teams like Kansas, who went down earlier today, and Villanova made a habit of making it to the Sweet 16, but from what we've seen from Texas, it's not that easy. It's not as simple as being the 2 seed, and that's how it should work out. You have to go out there and play 80 minutes of basketball and prove yourself against some of the better teams in the country. So I'm glad Texas put it all together. I will say, kind of going off Tarik's point, I said this offline to you, Andrew, but when Penn State took that 3-point lead with about 4.5 minutes to go, I was worried that Texas was just going to start settling for outside shots, but they continued to get the ball into Dylan Disu, and they didn't try to get everything back in one possession and retake that 5-point lead with one shot. They really worked the game. It was another phenomenal defensive effort. Timmy Allen was all over the floor, all over the glass. You could tell he really wanted this one. And I think, the hunger from this team is different than we've seen from previous iterations of Texas. You have 5 or 6 guys who are confirmed not coming back next year because of exhausted eligibility. So they really want it. And I think, it's just a testament to Texas to shoot 1 for 13 from deep, which was their worst 3-point mark all season, worst percentage, 7.7%, and to still win the game. So I think that's a good sign that they were able to, get tested and win a game where the 3-point ball wasn't working, because as we saw in game 1, became reliant on it. When it goes down, it's good, but when it doesn't go down, if you're relying on the 3, it can hurt you. Texas was able to navigate that today, and hats off to Rodney Terry and what he's done. I think we'll get into it, but all around, great job from Terry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought Texas found a good mix of being able to, at least contest on a lot of Penn State's 3-point attempts. The rebounding aspect kind of got away from Texas in the second half. You saw Penn State started to pull down more offensive rebounds, which was definitely concerning. That's something that gave them some extra possessions to give them life late. But I thought the way that Rodney Terry adapted in this game was very impressive. One of the things that I definitely noticed in this game, and Shane, you kind of hinted at it, was you saw the hunger from some of these like seniors, 5th-year seniors to get onto the Sweet 16 finally. And I don't mean to harp on guys like Arterio Morris, because I don't know if you guys saw the post-game clip yesterday.
Yep, not yesterday. I did. Yep.
He looked upset.
I did not.
He looked upset, and that was a little concerning. And he only got 7 minutes of playing time tonight. He was pretty much taken off the floor immediately. I don't know if y'all saw that play where he was pursuing. I don't know if that was Cameron Winters or Jalen Pickett on the ball, but he was pursuing the entire court. He's a really high effort, high motor defensive player. And so full props to him, but he didn't recognize the pick and roll coming out to the 3-point line. And he didn't, when the pick man, or when the ball handler ended up staying beyond the 3-point arc, he didn't stick with his man. And there ended up being a wide open 3-point shot that got Penn State, I believe it was back within 4 points at the time. And it was one of the most obvious missed coverages of the entire night for Texas. And it was the type of play that was just inexperienced defense. It's the type of thing you see from a true freshman that is insanely talented, high motor, but just overcommit sometimes. And, I haven't seen that from Terrio a whole lot, but this Penn State team, man, they know how to run a high pick and roll and get their open looks from three. And if they don't, they're fine with hitting the contested shot because they're one of the best tough shot making teams in the country, especially from deep. And so the point being that like the seniors in this game, I mean, the way they responded was insane. I mentioned Carr earlier. I've never really seen him as dejected as he was after that swing late. And then he came back and salted the game right then and there. He had a huge defensive rebound late as well. I mean, yeah, Timmy Allen, a dozen rebounds, 9 points. Dylan Disu, 28 points, 10 rebounds, 0 turnovers.
He was looking like Tim Duncan out there.
He was, and I tweeted out the stat after the game. He is one of 3 players in the shot clock era, and the only player in the 2000s to register at least 28 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and 0 turnovers. The last one, if y'all remember this name, Jamal Mashburn. And so.
Well, I think the 0 turnovers by you is a great call out because Penn State was sending the double team at him for a lot of the game. And he was able to, assess the situation. If he needed to, take a dribble or two back and kind of get where he needed. And that was, a ton of credit to him because Penn State was putting a lot of pressure on him. Obviously, he could see over them, a little bit shorter defenders, but still, when you don't play with the ball in your hands that often, all kudos to him. So good call out on the 0 turnovers. Very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can do that, just play that level of mistake-free basketball. I mean, Texas as a team really did a nice job playing pretty, there were a few mistakes, but I'm not going to say mistake-free basketball. But, Texas ended up spending more than 36 minutes of this game with the lead. Being able to command the lead that way against a team that plays at as slow of a pace as Penn State does. I think they are in the bottom 5 in terms of pace among all major conference teams in the country. I think there were somewhere in the ballpark of, Texas had 6 turnovers, 5 turnovers, something like that. 5 turnovers, 10 assists. Shane, I mentioned when we did the preview show that Texas needed to play at their own pace and not get down to Penn State's pace. And Texas played right at Penn State's pace and won. And that to me says a lot. Texas really didn't do much in the fast break. Just 2 nights ago, Texas had its best 3-point shooting night of the entire season. And tonight they had the worst. And they still found a way to win. That's a mark of a good team. And so, I don't know. I'm thoroughly impressed by this. Like I said, this was a fun game to watch, despite some of the shortcomings of tonight. I have to say, from the way Rodney Terry coached to the way that some of the seniors were able to come together and pull out this win, very, very awesome. I have to say, too, it was interesting to me. I found an interesting stat before this game that Penn State, they had the most fouls. So there's a ratio that CBB Analytics puts together that is, it is a combination of blocks and steals compared to personal fouls committed. Your ratio, you want that to be high because you want as many blocks and steals per personal foul as possible. Penn State had the worst ratio of any team in the major conferences this season, which indicates to me that they are not very effective at trying to be aggressive and disruptive. But the rest were very light on the whistle tonight. There was a ton of contact. This kind of felt like one of the TCU games where there was a ton of contact and a lot of stuff was let go. But again, just another thing that Texas was able to adapt to. I don't know.
I thought Texas' ability to run Penn State off the 3-point line was crucial in this one. There were, a fair amount of, not a fair amount, but, some looks that the Nittany Lions had that just didn't go down, open looks. But for the most part, Texas was playing, solid on-ball defense, getting up in the grill, and forcing Penn State to put the ball on the floor. And I think that played right into their hands. And the threes that Penn State did hit, Texas really didn't let it swing momentum too much. I mean, I don't know if it was just me, but those A&M fans or something had to have stuck around because it seemed like the crowd was all Nittany Lions in there. And when they went on their mini runs, the crowd was getting really energetic. And Texas, this is what you get from a veteran team in March, but they're able to withstand the runs, and I just really have loved how they've defended over the past 2 or 3 weeks in this little March run.
Yeah, no, I mean that is true. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, that there was a strong Penn State crowd there, and I mean obviously A&M fans are going to be rooting for Penn State over Texas in any situation. Um, you know,
I'm sad that we were robbed of a Lone Star Showdown tonight, but that's A&M's fault.
that was going to be my question to y'all was how do you feel about, having a Penn State win versus a Texas A&M win or having a win over Penn State versus a win over Texas A&M potentially, just a hypothetical.
I mean, there you go.
I mean, if we'd won against A&M, it's something you can like rub in their face the rest of the year until that. Win over Penn State, it's still you can still do that because you can say we beat the team that knocked you out and things like that. So it's fine. Ultimately, the goal was I thought even when Terry was put in as interim coach, I was like, this team has the talent to at least get to the Sweet 16, if not the Elite Eight. They're that veteran, that talented. This is what you should do. And as you all know, as long Texas fans, is that Texas loves to kind of underachieve. So if we had lost tonight, it was like, well, that's kind of par for the course, but it's kind of a failure. So, but with what we've done, you can definitely say that this season was a success. So it's too bad, but I'll get over it as far as the A&M thing. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, no, well, just kind of what you're saying right there. I think it's important, and what I've learned is to you got to celebrate the victories as they come. I mean, if you're just looking for a national championship every year, you're going to be let down a lot more than you're going to be happy. So I said it at the top, but Texas making the Sweet 16, people say, oh, they're a 2 seed. This should have happened. But you just mentioned it. This is a good win, and we've seen Texas choke many of times before. So I think walk with your head held a little higher this week, knowing that's the great thing about the tournament too, is if you get to the second weekend, you have those 4 days of, just walking around, repping the burnt orange, being like, my team's still in it, yours isn't, let's go. But, yeah, I personally didn't want to play A&M. There would have just been so much riding on that game. It's like, I don't know. I bet the players probably didn't care, but it would have been a little more stressful than this game if that would have happened.
That's true. I mean, I think Penn State was a good matchup for A&M, and Penn State's been a good matchup for most teams lately.
They seem to be more than a good matchup.
Yeah, just a good team. Man, Jalen Pickett. Am I the only one that came away from tonight thinking that Jalen Pickett would be a really good wide receiver? That dude can snatch the ball. It's insane. He's got an insane amount of entire body strength. It's so balanced. Yeah.
Yeah, he is one of the more interesting, in a good way, players in college basketball. I mean, credit to Texas for not fouling as much. I mean, Penn State only took 11 free throws, I believe, but the amount of times he was able to get to the paint and, Timmy Allen or whoever was on him would just wall up and force him to either shoot over him or make a pass. I thought that was big because he's really good with those head fakes and kind of using his body to maneuver around you. And Timmy Allen, for the most part, it was him on Pickett, was just able to wall up and force him to either take a tough shot or dish it off. So I thought that was big, too, not letting Penn State get to the line very often because they got into a lot of advantageous positions, but they weren't able to do a lot out of those positions they got to.
Yeah, no, Timmy Allen's defense on Jalen Pickett, I mentioned that in my post-game piece, but, dude, that was huge. Being able to be that switchable as he was, I think it was at least half of his defensive possessions. My cord's right here. At least half of his defensive possessions were guarding Jalen Pickett. It was, being able to defend a first-team All-American like that. Jalen Pickett, I'll say this before we get into our finishing thoughts for this game and look ahead to the next one. Jalen Pickett was held to 38% shooting from the field tonight, 7 turnovers. That is his worst performance in terms of scoring and managing the basketball in his entire time at Penn State, 2 or 3 years now. That is seriously impressive. So full credit to guys like Marcus Carr, Tyrese Hunter, Serge Rice, Timmy Allen. Those 4 were the main guys defending Jalen Pickett tonight. Got a lot of looks within the paint. They were very disruptive, getting hands in the passing lane, playing vertical, just staying disciplined, very aware on and off ball. Got to give props to them. Okay. I want to touch on Rodney Terry for a second without getting too deep into this. Verdict on Rodney Terry right now. I'll start here just to kind of go with the direction I was going to go with this conversation. I did a piece before the game. There were a couple of reports that came out saying that, kind of confirming earlier back channel stuff, that Rodney Terry has a good chance and will be in a favorable spot to get the job if he makes it to the Sweet 16 while holding together Texas's existing recruiting class. And he has a fantastic relationship with a little-known 5-star number 1 ranked recruit in the nation named Trey Johnson in the 2024 class. I'm going to say that I'm in favor of keeping Rodney Terry around, taking off the interim tag, unless we're going to get a guy like Jay Wright or Billy Donovan. That's my thought right now. What about y'all?
Well, like I said earlier, I think it's going to be difficult to not give it to him after he's taken Texas to more Sweet 16s than Shaka Smart and Chris Beard combined. And you haven't been to the Sweet 16 since 2008, so that's a huge accomplishment. The problem is there are a few problems. One is, his previous record at previous schools, not super great. And also, while this has been impressive, this is a team that Chris Beard put together, that he took over, that he'd had a relationship with, and that he could. And this is the thing about it. What makes this interim a little different than most interims. Most of the time, when an interim coach is put in, the team is not playing well. It's usually because that other coach got fired because they kept that coach too long. Then they're finally like, okay, we're just going to get rid of you, get this interim, and then we'll get the next guy. Beard's situation was the team was playing well already. Then he had his event, and they had to make Rodney Terry the interim, and he kept them playing well. So, it's a little different. It's not like Rodney Terry saved the season so much as he kind of kept it going on the trajectory that it should have gone there. And then there's always the thought of, okay, if we hire you now, in 2 years or 3 years, are we going to be having a conversation about getting another new coach? I mean, these are the kinds of things that Chris Del Conte and Jay Hartzell and Chris Eltife are going to have to be asking themselves as they prepare to make this next hire. Having said that, I certainly think that if they named Rodney Terry the coach, I would say, well, he did earn it, and I'll be fully supportive of him or whoever is the head coach. If you can get, like you said, Jay Wright or someone else that's like an elite Grand Slam hire, then you do that. Otherwise, you give it to Rodney Terry and see. But there's always going to be, I mean, it seems like there'll be double the pressure of, okay, if you got to the Sweet 16 this year, you bring in these more recruits, then, you're not going to get that grace period you might get if you're like a brand new coach. So they're going to keep expecting you to keep having sustained success. So, but again, like I said, if Del Conte and Hartzell say this is the guy, then I'm all behind that. So those are my 2 cents, amigo. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I think there are strong arguments either way, both ways. If you wanted to argue for Rodney, certainly have a great case. I mean, if you want to argue against him, you can make a case for that as well. I've had the same opinion on this since we started having this conversation in December and January. Personally, I'd lean towards giving the guy the job at this point, but not because what he's done in March, but because what he has done over the entirety of his term as interim head coach. March Madness, one of the most fluky tournaments, in sports. And if you're telling me that if Andrew Funk hit a couple more threes tonight, you wouldn't give Rodney Terry the job, or if Dylan Disu missed a couple floaters tonight, Rodney doesn't deserve the job compared to him getting it now, I think that just doesn't make much sense. I think, from a public perception, it certainly would have been easier to let him go if Texas struggled in the tournament, and it's easier to sign him long term if Texas does well in the tournament. But I don't think CDC and Hartzell should be taking into account public perception here. You should hire the guy who you think can lead this program for the next 5, 7, 10 years and do it at the highest capacity. If they think RT is that guy, then give him the job regardless of, what he's done in March thus far. Andrew, the two names that you brought up, Jay Wright and Billy Donovan, those are the two names exactly that came to my head, where it's like, if those guys want to entertain an offer from Texas, I'd be hard pressed to see them not get the job. But other names that we originally been throwing out earlier in the season, like a Musselman or things like that, I think RT has probably earned it over them. But all I would say is I don't want this decision to be made through emotion of Texas reaching the Sweet 16 for the first time in 15 years. Yeah, that's all well and dandy, but who else reached the Sweet 16 is that coach at Princeton. And you're sure as hell not going to go hire that coach. And he did it with a far worse team than RT did. So I would just say take some emotion out of this. Obviously, the guys love him, but hire who you think is going to be the best guy for the next 5, 7, 10 years. Tarik made a great point. We don't want to be in a position where 2 to 3 years from now we're looking at, Terry might have to be out the door. He hasn't brought in great transfer classes or, great 2024, 2025 recruiting classes. That's a spot you don't want to be in. If you don't think that's going to be a problem, then I think he's proved his mettle as an X's and O's coach during this job.
Here's one other data point. So in the Big 12, you say this is people say this is the best basketball conference, and maybe that's true. But remember also, your next coach is going to have to be taking on Duke and Kentucky every year, as well as Alabama. Now they're looking like a really good run at Auburn and these other schools. So the SEC is going to be a very, very dominant basketball conference. So you have to say, I think this coach can beat these guys on a regular basis, and that will be the path into the tournament. It's not going to be the same type of thing as it's been in the Big 12. So that's something else to think about.
I hear what you're saying, Tarik, because Alabama is at this point becoming like a steady top 15 program too in college hoops. And Tennessee is pretty established as a top 20 program, but the Big 12 after adding Cincinnati and Houston is going to be pretty stacked as well still for hoops. You're not losing much when you lose OU for basketball. You know what? Reverting back to the Rodney Terry conversation, I'll say this. It's really interesting to me. I'm a Pacers fan, so I'll say it. It would have been really interesting for me to see Rodney Terry coach up Paul George at Fresno State, because Paul George is the type of talent that Texas could be getting in or will be getting in Ron Holland, or could be getting in a Trey Johnson. And I would have liked to see the way that he handled that. He coached some NBA talents, not just NBA talents, but NBA players at Fresno State. I don't know if y'all know a point guard, played for the Nets for a while, he's played for a few different teams as well, Tyler Johnson. He played at Fresno State. Paul Watson, a forward that played in the NBA for a few years, also played at Fresno State, and they had really solid careers there. Rodney Terry took Fresno State. I will say they ended up kind of flatlining by the end of his tenure there to more of a middling 20-win team in the Mountain West, but he did make the tournament one year, and that's been the height of the Fresno State program in the last few decades, or at least the last couple decades. And so I'd be interested to see what he could do with the level of talent that he could bring onto the 40, knowing how long he's coached here. That's all I would say. But
it's going to be really fun next year if it's him versus when we play Ole Miss. So.
Oh, yeah. That'll be something. Man, God, Ole Miss. If there was ever a school with, I don't know, morals are shoved under the rug a lot.
All they have to do is wait until Lane Kiffin takes over for Nick Saban at Alabama and they hire Art Briles, and then you're like, okay, now you're set.
It's insane. Okay, I thought he was going to end up like a D2 school and then have to work his way back. But yeah, anyway, let's not jump into that conversation tonight. So because I'm in a happy place right now, and I'm going to keep it that way. I'm just going to say this. I'm at a loss for words sometimes because, like I said, I've covered a lot of Texas basketball over the years, from the days of, like Jackson Hayes, and even before that, I'm losing some names right now. Kerwin Roach, guys like that.
Dylan Osikowski.
Yeah, that's where I was going next. Yeah, the NIT title team.
Coleman.
Yeah, like I said, 2016 up until now, and it's nice to see it paying dividends for some of these guys. I think I would have liked to see it for a guy like, it was kind of disappointing to see Courtney Ramey exit the way he did. At the same time, it was almost weirdly gratifying to see Arizona exit early while Texas is making it this far with Courtney Ramey, because it feels like he could have stuck around. But I would have liked to see it for guys like Courtney Ramey or Matt Coleman, especially Andrew Jones. I think those guys would have deserved it too. But seeing Brock Cunningham, Marcus Carr, Timmy Allen, Christian Bishop. Bishop had some good runs with Creighton, but seeing these guys that have grinded for so long get into the Sweet 16 is not only, I'm sure, very gratifying for them, and Dylan Disu as well, especially coming off the knee injury, but very gratifying for me just knowing the amount of time I've covered this team, and I'd like to see success for them. So, but anyway, we're up past 30 minutes now, so I'll digress. Anything else y'all have? Okay.
I think, like I said, wear the burnt orange proudly the next 4 days, because only 16 teams are going to be able to, rep their school with true pride, knowing they're still in the NCAA tournament. So. And
Princeton won't know that they're in the Sweet 16 because all the kids are in the library.
Fair.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's a fun night to be a Texas fan, because I'm sure the women's team is doing pretty well. Maybe not, but
they're up like 40. I was looking at it. It was like 61-23.
So they'll be in the Sweet 16 too then.
Round of 32.
32.
Yeah, women's tournament starts a little bit later, but that's okay. My dad played football at ECU, so I've got some ECU in me, but they're not very good.
I think that's where like the next big national championship is coming, is probably women's basketball.
Maybe, yeah.
After 2023 men's basketball, I could see women's basketball taking it next. I agree.
They've been very close a lot of times lately. A lot of Elite Eight runs. But like I said, I'll digress. It's a nice time. Baseball won by 14 runs today. It's been a good day for Texas sports. So for all y'all Longhorns fans out there, enjoy it. And we'll be here every step of the way. Definitely a lot of coverage coming up in the next few days. But yeah, for me, Shane Black, Tarik LaCour, look at headlines.com. That's pretty much it. Welcome.